Recently, I won a store showdown. But who cares about that? Because I won something much bigger. Champion, baby. This past weekend, I went to San Francisco to compete in the Planetary Qualifier, and I won the whole freaking thing. This is the list that I ran. If you've watched the streams, you've watched my past videos, this comes to no surprise. Boba ECL, right? This list looks a little bit different from previous lists I've had, but it's essentially the same game plan. It's a pretty aggressive game plan. Now I'll kind of run through the basic idea of how we want to win with this list. Typically, your turn one, your best turn ones are like a Greedo or a mercenary gunship. The 3 power just allows you to push a lot of damage. Get really aggressive early. Turn 2 is usually for ramp, resupply or super laser technician. It's not bad if you don't have it. You could play like a Boba Fett or 7th Fleet Defender or a Toro. These aren't bad options, but typically you want to ramp because turn 3, you want that to be your Boba turn. Now the Boba turn is where you really explode and you could pretty much decide the game at this turn. And this is where all of your options open up. This is where ECL comes in like really handy. If you're able to activate your Boba turn with something like Waylay or Forlom coming in and killing something, or even like an ECL Battalion or ECL Zuckuss, you can really just start playing a ton of stuff. Really take advantage of those 8 resources that you get access to, right? Then after your Boba turn, you played a bunch of units, dealt a bunch of damage. Fire Spray comes down next turn, and then followed by like a Maul or a Vader to pretty much finish the game. Usually games will end a turn after your Boba turn, or even the turn after. Like it doesn't last much longer than that if the game plan goes according to plan. Now the sideboard is heavily teched for the aggro matchup. We have things like McClunky, No Good to Be Dead, a 3rd Waylay. These come in when you're playing something like Sabine or like Boba Red, any sort of aggro matchup, something that might be faster than us. Boba Fett's armor and Steadfast Battalion, as well as the No Good to Be Deads, are mostly for the Boba mirror. Having those cards is really huge against another Boba with Boba Fett's armor. You can use No Good to Be Dead. You can kill it with Steadfast Battalion before they could put an armor on it. It's a really nice combo with ECL and Steadfast Battalion. You're really threatening that Boba on their turn as soon as they flip. And then we have the Lurking Ties for the control matchup. That's pretty much our sideboard for control because it's pushes damage and it's really hard to deal with. It's really hard for blue and control decks to deal with. Now that's the general idea of the list. Then you have things like Bazine to pick out like important key cards of a deck. So we're looking for ramp cards, we're looking for super laser blast, and we're looking for, you know, things like Darksaber or Poe in like a Sabine deck. You have the Cloud Rider to come in and kill something early. You have the blasters to push some surprise damage to finish out the game. Obviously Boba Fett's armor is just can win games on its own sometimes, especially against decks that have trouble dealing with it. Things that don't have like blue removal, more like green or red, things that deal damage to clear units. We have the Toro combo. You could fit him with a blaster and untap him with, you know, a Forlom to follow up or a Zuckuss. And then ECL is really nice with Zuckuss and Steadfast Battalion because those 2 cards are basically our leader killers. That's how I like to think of them. As soon as we hit 5 resources, we're threatening that ECL Zuckuss, threatening that ECL Battalion to just come in and wipe out their leader as soon as they flip. Barrage is kind of a secondary leader killer or just board wipe, right? So if you don't have the Battalion or Zuckuss, or maybe you used ECL earlier, Barrage can also fill that role. Now that's kind of a general overview of the deck. You can watch some of my other videos or streams if you want to see more about this. But I really want to get into the event itself. The event was 7 rounds of Swiss, followed by a top 8 cut. Now, for the first 4 rounds of the event, I was absolutely on fire. First round was against a Vader Green, and I wiped him out quick 2-0. It had to have been 10 minutes, and we were done. My Bazine was able to wipe out his key ramp. I was able to just be super aggressive, play Boba Fett's armor. He didn't really have anything to deal with it, other than an out of aspect power of the dark side. Problem with that was that I had, so many other units on the board that power of the dark side doesn't really matter that much to me, and it's not really going to wipe out my Boba. But I thought that was interesting. He specifically put that in to deal with Boba Fett with Boba's armor. And I think that might be a pretty good idea. Just not against my list. Second game was a Kira ECL. Again, I pretty much same game plan as before. Wiped him out 2-0. Nothing really got in the way of this, right? Usually Kira could be a tough matchup for Boba because she's kind of a Boba assassin. On her flip turn, she comes out, halves Boba's health, right? And then just swings in and kills him. But when he would do that, I had my ECL Zuckuss ready to go and come out and kill her. Even if he had a Pike Sentinel in the way, even if you think Kira's safe, even if you think your leader's safe behind a Sentinel, Zuckuss can come down with ECL and just ignore the Sentinel and wipe out your leader. So I think he's very powerful with ECL. Now, game 3 was against a Han 2 Blue. A lot of times this is one that can be a little tricky, and if they get to their late game, they can drop, Redemption and heal a bunch, and then they start dropping Luke Skywalkers, and it's really hard to come back from something like that. But in these 2 games, I was super quick. I was able to take out everything he was dropping, and ultimately, I just played far more units than he could deal with. Usually, right, that's the game plan, is I'm just playing a ton of units. And something I didn't mention before when talking about the list, like, you don't have to play a 5-drop on your Boba turn. You don't have to play a Zuckuss or a Battalion, although it's ideal to ECL those guys in on your Boba turn. Like, it's not 100% necessary. You could play a Toro and a Boba Fett, and then get your Boba leader out. And then you have like 3 or 4 units on the field, right? And then you can start getting him blasters and putting Boba Fett's armor on stuff. Like, it gets overwhelming quick. And ultimately, that's what kept happening in these first few games. So I was able to wipe out the Han 2 Blue, move on to round 4 with a 3-0 record. Now, round 4, I get paired against a Cad Blue. Now, it was really cool to see a Cad Blue be 3-0 at this point. I really like seeing Cad do well because I really like him as a leader. But ultimately, Blue, anything control, struggles against how aggressive my deck is. Really, like, I could be so fast, and people don't really anticipate that. So pretty much same as before, I was able to get off my game plan that I've been talking about without any interruptions. There were some cool things that he was able to do with, like, Cad Bane ping damage plus a 4-lom, make me choose who I'm damaging, then 4-lom kills whatever got damaged from Cad Bane's ability. And I really like that aspect of it, but I'm just playing too many units. You can't deal with everything that I'm playing. And then by the time you try to deal with all of that, then I'm dropping Fire Spray, then I'm dropping Maul. Like, it's over at that point. So at this point, I was feeling incredible. I was 4-0. I was 8-0 in sets. I hadn't dropped a single set. None of my games went to 3. So at this point, I found myself at the top table. Now, Late Night Gaming was there recording the top table all day. So I'm really excited to see some of these games and react to them. This one in particular, Game 5, I get paired against a Bosk Blue. Now, Bosk Blue was never something I was super concerned about before this last weekend. It wasn't until the night before my buddy was helping me test into Bosk Blue, and I was struggling. He was kicking my ass, and I was a little worried at that point. I was like, man, what am I gonna do against Bosk Blue if I play him tomorrow? And then it got to the point where I was like, well, I just hope not many people are playing it. So game 1 against this Bosk Blue, I absolutely destroyed him. I came in hot, and I don't think he was ready for it. I was too fast. He couldn't answer the Boba's armor on my Boba Fett leader, and I ended up just dealing like so much freaking damage so fast. Now game 2 became a little bit of a different story. He sighted in top target, and this became the absolute bane of my existence. These top targets, man, he healed so much. I really want to watch these games back because I want to say I dealt 50 damage at least. He was healing like crazy. A combination of top target with vigilance. Like there were turns where he would heal 11. He would top target a unit and then kill that unit with vigilance. That's 11 damage healed in one fell swoop. It was pretty ridiculous. The real nail in the coffin, though, I got him to 24 damage, and I played a Bazine. This was before his Super Laser Blast turn. Played a Bazine. Timing was perfect. I was looking for that Super Laser Blast. He didn't have it. And then next turn, he had it. And he played it. So it really hurt that my Bazine missed that Super Laser Blast just barely. And that could have changed the whole game, you know? So the Super Laser Blast wiped me out, and he was able to just continue healing after that, and it's over at that point. There's not much room for coming back. And unfortunately, the third game looked exactly the same as the second. I got him up to like 24 damage or something like that, and I couldn't hit his Super Laser Blasts, and they ended up just wiping me out. And the healing, Super Laser Blast, then he starts dropping his Crate Dragon, and yeah, there's no coming back from that. I do really want to watch this game and react to it and see what I could have done differently. If I had to change anything, I would probably side in the McClunkies as well to just kind of counter his bounties. If he drops a bounty on like an early Underworld unit, or any Underworld unit for that matter, I could drop a McClunky and just basically destroy the bounty. And if I had something like that, I think things would have been a little different. So after the loss, you know, all I was thinking was, all right, I'm seeing you in top 8. You know, I'm getting my revenge later. Like, I'll see you again. We'll match up, and we'll get another good game in. I tried not to dwell on it. I tried to just move past it and really like dial in, because if I lose again, I'm missing top cut essentially, right? So the next game I was paired into Boba Tarkentown. Now usually Boba Red is a problem for Boba Green, especially the like grindier version of Boba Green. I don't worry about it as much because my deck is so fast, and I can actually handle aggressive decks pretty decently just by like racing them essentially. This first game, it's tough to kind of feel out like, okay, who's the control deck here? Who's the aggro deck here? Am I just trying to push damage, or am I trying to like defeat his units, right? So this first game, I kind of took the more defensive role, and I think that ended up being a mistake. I was spending my time dealing with his units, and eventually he was able to just deploy his Boba Fett, put a Boba Fett's armor on it, and just race me. And I couldn't really keep up because I was spending the whole game dealing with his units. I did have a nice couple Bazine plays, and I picked apart his hand to the point where like I got rid of his fire spray, and he stopped resourcing after 5. He just stayed at 5 resources because he didn't have his fire spray, and I thought that was gonna lead to me winning, but he was able to win it with the Boba Fett, Boba Armor combo. And honestly, in the main board, that's really hard for me to deal with. But as soon as I sighted in my answers, No Gonna Be Dead, McClunky, I think I even put the 3rd Battalion and the other Boba Fett's armor in there just to really, really deal with it. And yeah, the next 2 games, I was able to just kind of dominate and push enough damage to where he felt like he had to deal with my units, right? He had to take the role of like, oh, I'm the control deck. I'm going to start dealing damage to your units. And if that ever happens, I can usually take over the game. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. I took the next 2 games, had some pretty clutch No Good To Me Deads on his Boba leader. And yeah, that just works so well against Boba. Now, the final game of Swiss was probably my closest game yet. It was against the Sabine ECL. Now, going into these, people are always like, oh, Boba Green, like, you just destroy me as Sabine, right? But I usually feel like Sabine is one of my harder matchups, and it's usually one of my closer games, because my deck's usually more on the aggressive side of things. It's not the same as that like grindy Boba Green. I can't just drag the game out and then start dropping like reinforcement walkers and stuff like that. I really just have to like race at some point in the game. I have to take over the board and then just race damage. That's basically how these usually turn out. And I don't remember which game like I won, which game he won, but the game that he won was a really, really weird one. I felt like I was in control the whole game, but he just kept getting little bits of damage here and there to the point where, you know, I had 22 damage on my base and he had a K2SO out. And ultimately that's what won the game. Like if I kill the K2SO, I lose. If I let the K2SO live, I lose. It got to a situation like that. He didn't like play any ECL pose or ECL wreckers, nothing crazy like that. He was just playing simple units throughout, and K2SO ended up taking it. Now, the first game that I won, I pretty much just dominated the board, and it was a pretty simple win. But game three was so freaking close. Oh my god, I was so stressed this game. This was like deciding this game was deciding which one of us was gonna make it to top 8, right? Who was gonna be 6-1, who was gonna go on to top cut. And it got down to the wire. We were just trading blows back and forth the whole game, like dealing with each other's stuff, dealing damage to base, and we were trying to race at this point. He had 15 damage on base, and I had like 23. That's right. I had like 23 damage. And I had a fire spray and a mercenary gunship ready to swing in this turn. And he had just played a couple units. I think it was like a Sindari Peacekeeper and then like a space unit, like an A-Wing or something. And he was ready to just claim and win the game. Because even if I dealt with that A-Wing or whatever space unit he had out, I couldn't deal with the Peacekeepers this turn. So he just claimed and he's like, all right, what do you got? You know? So I swing in with the mercenary gunship and the fire spray, putting him up to 23. And at this point, it's like, okay, he's just going to win then. We're going to go to the next turn and he's going to win. But I had a McClunky. This is another reason I love bringing him in from the sideboard. I had 7 resources on tap, so I was able to hit McClunky on my fire spray, bounce it back to my hand, play it readied, and swing in for the win. I wish this game was recorded because I want to watch it back and see exactly how that happened, but it was basically like that. I won off of a clunky fire spray, and I was so stoked. It was such a good game, and you couldn't have asked for a better game, really. It came down to like one action. It was insane. So after Swiss, that leaves me 6-1, and unfortunately for that Bosk Blue that I played earlier, he ended up losing his next 2 games. He lost to a Sabine, and then he lost to the Hantu Blue that I had beat earlier. Now, this Hantu Blue player was really good, and after he lost to me, he ended up winning out, going 6-1. And so I ended as the 1st seed out of Swiss, and he, the Hantu Blue, ended at the 2nd seed, going into top 8. And so that was really cool. And it's unfortunate that I didn't get my rematch against the Bosk Blue, but at the same time, it's probably better that I didn't end up playing him again. This top 8 was really, really aggressive. It was me as Boba ECL. It was the Hantu Blue, Boba Green. There were 2 Boba Reds. The Boba Tarkentown that I played in round 6 of Swiss. And then a Boba Red 30. And 3. There were 3 Sabine ECLs. So 3 Sabine ECLs, 2 Boba Reds, me, Palp Green, Hantu Blue. Yep, that's all of them. There were 3 Sabine ECLs. I thought that was insane. Now, going into top 8 as the number 1 seed, obviously my first match is against the 8 seed. Unfortunately, I thought I avoided my worst matchup in Bosk Blue, but the 8th seed was a Palpatine Green. This is like the epitome of one of my least favorite matchups I could be put into. It's a tough one. Any hyper ramp deck is like just as bad, if not worse, than Bosk Blue. So I was a little nervous going into this one, but ultimately I was like, I'm fine. I'm going in. I'm going to dominate, right? And the first game, exactly that happened. I don't think he expected me to be as aggressive as I was, and I was able to just, get my game plan down. Ultimately, I was able to eliminate all of his barrage targets, right? I always focus on that when I'm playing a green villain deck, is just get rid of their barrage targets so they can't wipe my board. So I'm sitting here building this board. If they have a good barrage target, it's getting wiped, right? So I just got to deal with those units while I'm building my board and then just push a bunch of damage. Now, Emperor Palpatine is one of those decks that has a really hard time dealing with Boba Fett's armor. And so this first game, I put Boba Fett's armor on my leader, swung in with Hotshot Blaster, and the next turn, swung in with another Hotshot Blaster. So he dealt 10 damage in the last turn, and that's what ended the game. It was pretty ridiculous, but I can't complain. Now, game 2, my opponent came back with a vengeance, okay? He ramped a lot. I think he had to have ramped 3 times. He played 3 commands. Yeah, it was ridiculous. He ramped so much, and I ended up I got him to 26 damage, okay? I had a Boba Fett leader, a 7th Fleet Defender that had 1 damage on it, and a Fire Spray. And all he had was a Colonel Yularen, okay? I was about to end the game. But, as I mentioned, he ramped a lot. So, at this point in the game, he was able to drop a freaking Devastator, blast my Boba Fett leader, preventing me from getting lethal, healing 1 from the Colonel Yularen ping, going down 25. So my Fire Spray has to hit in. The problem is he has a Devastator. So this one was weird. My plan was, okay, I have a barrage. I'm going to slap the barrage on Fire Spray, deal 7 damage to the Devastator, finish it with the 7th fleet, and then go in for lethal with the fire spray. That was my thought process, right? So I slapped down the barrage. And then I think, wait a second, he hasn't brought out his Palpatine yet. So if I don't kill Yularen with this barrage, he's going to sack his Yularen, ping my fire spray, bring out Palp, steal my fire spray. I didn't want that to happen. So I said, okay, I'm going to kill Yularen. But my 7th fleet has a damage on it, so he's going to steal that anyway, so I can't finish my plan. So I ended up going through with it, killing the Yularen, dealing the rest of the damage to the Devastator, killing the Devastator with the fire spray, and then he brought out Palp, stole my 7th fleet, and I couldn't come back from that. If I drew a fire spray, I would have come back, but ultimately I drew a like Boba Fett of Boba's armor or something like that. It wasn't enough, and he was able to just finish me off. So it was an unfortunate game 2. Game 3, I don't want him to ramp that much again, right? But he ends up ramping, and this is a problem I was facing the whole set. Okay, I had Bazines in my resource. I was planning on smuggling them out to get rid of his ramp, right? Ideally, you get the turn 1 Bazine and hit ramp, but I wasn't hitting the ramp. So I had him in smuggle, and I was ready to time it out, right before he's about to use his command. And there was always these moments of, okay, I can smuggle Bazine, or I could play this unit and try to push damage. And I kept opting for the play the unit, push the damage. And every time I made that decision, he plays a freaking command, and he just kept ramping. And so this game, I was like, ugh, this is like exactly game 2. Like the same thing is going to freaking happen. So I have him at about 25 damage, right? And I think, I don't remember exactly. All of these games are recorded. All of these top 8 games of mine were recorded, and I can't wait to watch them and react to them and explain what was going through my head during these games. But I'm pretty sure he was at like 25 damage, and all I needed was a fire spray to kill him. So I play a fire spray. He plays that Sentinel ship, the 3-2. I always forget the name of that ship, but you know what I'm talking about. The villain 3-2 Sentinel ship. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll swing into it. Little does he know, I have 2 more fire sprays in my hand. I was saving 3 fire sprays for probably half the game. I just kept saving these fire sprays. Usually, I'll resource them, like extra fire sprays. But in this case, I was like, I need all the freaking fire sprays I can get because of what happened last game, right? So I kill the ship, and then he plays another one. I'm like, okay, great. So I claim, next turn, kill his ship with that fire spray, and, you know, trade, because I killed the other ship with the fire spray. I killed 2 of those ships with 1 fire spray. I'm like, okay, all I got to do is drop 1 of these fire sprays and I win. He drops another one. So I play my second fire spray, kill it. He does something else over here. Then I go, okay, 1 more fire spray for lethal. And he couldn't deal with it, and that's what won me the game. I had to play 3 fire sprays to win game 3. That one was like just as close as that Sabine game. It was insane. And again, fire spray did it for me, you know? Good old fire spray. Gotta love it. Now, we're in semis, baby. The semifinals. So, semifinals, I'm playing Sabine CL. I expected it because there were so many in top 8. I was expecting to play at least this or Boba Red. But Boba Red's got taken out, man. It was me and Sabine CL on one side of the bracket, and then that Han 2 Blue, and another Sabine CL on the other side of the bracket. Now, my game was brutal. I absolutely brutalized this Sabine. It was to the point where I wasn't even the, like, control deck. I wasn't even, like, the one dealing with his units. I was the aggressor in these games. I was the aggressive deck, and he had to deal with my stuff. And as soon as I put a Sabine in that position, it's over, you know? And that's the goal. If I could put the Sabines in that position, I have nothing to worry about. I can just push damage and win the race. That's exactly what happened, and it felt incredible. And at this point, it was like 10:30, and I was just locked in. I had had my like second energy drink. I was staying hydrated all day, and I just had like all the stamina in the world. It felt like I was in the freaking zone. I didn't feel tired at all. Not even a bit. I had so much adrenaline. I was so stoked to be in the top 8. Not only in the top 8, but now I'm in the freaking finals. It was an incredible experience. It was a little unfortunate though, because my game ended so quickly with that Sabine. I had to wait for like a crazy grindy game 3 between the Hantu Blue and the Sabine ECL. Like, it was the most insane game of Star Wars Unlimited I'd probably ever seen in my life. Like, oh my god, I've never seen Sabine like grind that far into the game to the point where like this guy was killing crate dragons. He was killing crate dragons and Lukes and like dealing with Han's endgame stuff. And I didn't understand. It didn't make sense to me. I couldn't compute, but it was happening right in front of everybody's eyes. It was insane. And yeah, the Hantu Blue couldn't pull it out. The Sabine took it in game 3. Some of the closest games I've ever seen, but it was a grind. It was a battle. And actually, we're lucky enough to have the third game ended up getting recorded because our game finished so fast, and they were like, oh yeah, you guys want to just move over to the recording table and get your game recorded? And they're like, yeah, might as well. So that game 3 is actually going to be recorded, and I will for sure be reacting to it once it's out. So it's the finals. It's me and a Sabine ECL. And oh man, I was ready. I was prepared for this matchup. This guy, great Sabine player. Games ended up going to the late game, and to the point he was dropping like Ewing reinforcements. I was like, wow, I haven't seen that in a Sabine in a while. Yeah, I was surprised how well his Sabine deck was able to just grind it out, right? But unfortunately for him, my deck just can grind a little better, and I was able to race him to the finish. So the finals, 2-0. I took it, and it felt amazing. You couldn't believe it, man. It was like, felt really like justifying all the time and energy I've spent like tinkering with this list and just grinding games. Like, I was playing fast all day. Like, it was instinctual, you know? My reps paid off, man. And yeah, it was amazing. And I mean, big shout out to everybody I played. Was so freaking cool. Every opponent I had, I would check in with them all day, like, oh, how are you doing? Like, oh man, you lost to that guy, or oh, great job winning. And I would just chat it up with everybody I played against, and everybody was so cool. And shout out to the Fresno crew that I went up with. Like, they were so freaking supportive and cheering me on the whole way through top 8 and everything. And yeah, they were amazing. Big shout out to you guys, the viewers, the guys in stream, hopping in chat, giving me ideas and playing against me in matches, and just, helping me build that knowledge and get those reps. Like, I really appreciate it. It's been a really cool journey. Making content, going through set 2, and seeing the fruits of that labor, seeing the fruits It's a surreal experience, man. And yeah, that was the tournament. Hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys enjoy the list. I'm definitely gonna immediately start building some set 3 decks, starting from this list, and kind of do a similar thing I did in set 2. You know, start with cards I'm excited about. You know, tinker with it all the way through, and see what works. I definitely want to keep playing Boba ECL, so stay tuned for that content. And I'm definitely going to start streaming again consistently. This week was kind of crazy, obviously, with the tournament, you know, Sunday, and recovering all day Monday from being exhausted from 14 hours of Star Wars Unlimited. But yeah, make sure you subscribe and keep an eye out for new stuff that I'm going to start pumping out. Anyway, really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.